Hi, this is Julia Sutliff, and I'm going to be painting at the top of the hill today under my umbrella in the rain and fog. The umbrella works surprisingly well. There are several compositions up here today, but I'm just going to stick with this one. I like the kind of wild tangle of flowers here. I use 3 coats of ground, 2 acrylic, and then 1 coat of oil ground, which helps me erase. And then I sketch with a combination of orange paint and medium. You can click here if you want to see how I do that. Then I start off with my darkest darks, and in this case those are the stems of the flowers. I'm trying to stay very thin here so that if I want to add any color later on top of these darks, it's not going to get too muddy. It'll be easy to add color, and also if I'm painting alongside these dark colors, I won't pick up too much dark color and muddy those eventual colors. Trying to draw quickly, but still trying to reflect the attitudes and poses of the flowers. Even though I do have my sketch here, I am trying to watch my subject rather than the sketch as I'm sketching. So often, you'll notice maybe that I'm not following the sketch, but the sketch is really there more for placement. But then I'm still really trying to draw what I see as I put in my initial paint. You can see there how I erased a little bit, and the reason why that came up as easily as it did is in part because of that third layer of ground that I put on, that oil ground. Oh, this is another good place where I erased, and it just comes right up. I found that oil ground is wonderful for this. Acrylic ground holds on to paint much more. Oil ground will give it up, but it's still a very stable ground. So after I get in these initial stems, trying to again get in that sort of that dance that drew me to this image in the first place. And this is an example here where I was fussing over that placement, and it might seem picky, but again, I wanted to have that look that I was drawn to initially. Another example here of erasing, how nicely that comes up. Pretty soon I'm going to be going in with like a medium dark tone for those trees beyond, and it's a good example of how when you, oh, okay, I'm putting in a medium dark tone to suggest the stems in between these main stems. Again, sometimes it's just you cannot know really what the right tone is until you've messed around on the board with it a little bit. Even you might mix it up and think it's right, but then you got to get it on the board. And this is the case here. I was sort of trying with a lighter tone, but needed to go lighter and lighter until I'm getting that right tone for the trees in the background. Again, if I'm not going too thick with that initial pass, then I can more easily layer over colors on top. So I'm not getting too thick yet. I will start getting a little bit thicker when I start putting in white in between things, and that's because white generally needs to be pretty thick. It would be okay to go in with thin white here and then add the thickness later, but I guess I'm feeling like a medium thickness of white is good here, that I'm probably not going to be erasing too much of this white. And actually that's probably why I'm going in here and putting in these medium tones before I keep going with the white, because I don't want to have to be erasing white all over the place, picking up gloppy white. So as long as I get all those darker tones in first, then I can be thick with the white. And as I started on the sky up here, I was trying to move very quickly because the fog was moving very quickly. And in fact, only like a minute after I finished this fog, the last mark I made, I think, it swept all away. And so it was, anytime you've got an element that might change suddenly, good to get it in as quickly as possible. And I'm trying to fill in a little bit here, but trying to keep myself from getting too detailed, not just for moving quickly, but also you don't want to get stuck in any one area, because that's going to, if you get too detailed or too developed or pay too much attention in one area, you're going to throw off the rest of your painting. So I try to keep it all at the same level of development, adding a little bit of tonal differences in the sky there to suggest the variation in the fog. Okay, filling in white down here, staying fairly thick. there is an area down here that's where I end up having to erase some of the gray, and this is a very good example when I'm doing this erasing down here of how there's a couple tricks. One is to use a layer of oil ground, and the other one is, go in on top with a lighter color and erase that again. So now that darker color is more fully erased, and then putting in the lighter color to match the tones of the white around it. You'll notice that I'm trying to move around all over the board, trying to keep everything at the same level of development, trying not to get stuck in any one area. I usually hit this point where I'm trying not to look back, trying not to think backwards at all, trying only just to go forwards. And I know that I may be making marks that I don't like later, but this is just to get everything covered. And often you don't really know how a mark is going to look until you see everything all together at the end. So that can be another good strategy. Just move forward and try not to judge too much. Using filberts to fill in detail here. Before I went in today, I did try to add a little bit more gray in between the stems, but tried to avoid complicating it with much more detail. Thanks for watching today. Hope it was helpful.